Good morning everyone. Welcome back to Monday morning's chipping edition. So last week we spoke very much about our technique, how to play a chip shot, how to make a good contact, what a chip shot looks like, and how to play it, where we would use it on the golf course. So here to start with, we're going to look at recapping last week, so remembering our 5 numbers. We're going to talk about how we threw the ball a little bit and how we use that to judge our distances. And then I'm going to talk about how we can progress that on today with some different challenges I've set up, or little challenge exercises that I've set up over my shoulder behind me that we're going to talk about a little bit later. So, here to start with, remember when we're chipping we use a sand wedge or a pitching wedge. If you haven't got either of those, a 9-iron is absolutely fine as well. Now the 5 points, really important to remember. Without these 5 points we can't make a good chip shot without being a little bit lucky, and we don't want to be lucky, we want to get good at it so we can repeat it. So here, remember, number 1 will be to move our hands down the bottom of the grip. Okay, now it's important you remember this is the same grip as we use for every shot, but the hands are just moved to the bottom. Number 2, make that triangle between our golf ball and our 2 feet. Then number 3, a little lean onto that front foot, get the top of the golf club pointing towards my pocket. Number 4, nice tick and a tuck. And number 5, a nice freeze finish. And you'll see here my belly button will point towards my target and my back foot will just roll up onto its toe. Now the things that we see people do wrong here is they flick their wrists. They try and flick the wrists and help the ball into the air, or they fall backwards and try and launch the ball up. Now you can hit good shots like this, but they're very few and far between. We have to be lucky to hit a good shot like that. There's more that can go wrong, like we explained last week. So really important, keep these arms straight and turn your body, and you'll see the ball lift into the air nicely. Now last week we also spoke about how we threw the ball. So we're talking about throwing the ball into our target and trying to land it in those different areas. So for today, we're going to take that on to the next level a little bit. So behind me or over my shoulder, you'll see I've set up some targets here. Now I'm just going to move to the side so you can see. So I've got my golf balls where I'm going to hit from. Now, this exercise is called the chipping ladder. Okay, now for the purposes of it, I've laid a club on the ground, but when I did this earlier, or set it up earlier, you couldn't really see it on the camera, so I've put some cones down on top of the club. So you don't need to do that at home. I've just done that so you guys can see it a little bit easier. So the way to set this up, you're going to get your golf balls, you're going to take one big step, lay a club on the floor where the green cones are. Then another big step, lay the next club down, another big step, lay the clubs down, and so on. Now, in my garden here, I've managed to do, I think it's 5 clubs, so I've got 4 landing zones, okay? So if your garden is not quite as long, you can do it a little bit shorter, that's absolutely fine. If your garden is slightly longer than this one, you can do it further away. That's not a problem too. It's just having some points where we can get used to landing the ball into, which is really important because when we're on the golf course, like we said last week, you know, when you have a chip, you're thinking about where the ball needs to land and how far it's going to roll. So normally it's about 50% in the air and a 50% roll. But what we then have to get good at is an exercise like this in terms of landing the ball in the right place. In my head, picturing that point and landing it in that correct spot. So here, this is all about landing areas. So when we come up, I'm going to try and chip the golf ball into the air, like we saw last week, and it has to land in box number 1. Once I land the ball in box 1, then I'm going to try and hit it a bit harder, land it in box 2, and so on. Now the idea of this challenge is to start with, just grab a few golf balls, try and land it in the different targets. So get used to your length of the golf swing, throw some of the golf balls if you want to, we'll do that in a moment. And then challenge yourself a little bit later, so perhaps try and do it in a run. So here, if I got the ball into the first box, then I got one into the second box, and then I was going for the third one and I missed it. It went too far or it went too short. Not a problem, we start again. Okay, so try and challenge yourself. Practice to begin with, and then create a challenge afterwards. So here, with this first box, what I want you to think about before we start having a go in a moment is the throwing idea and how hard to hit it. Use your eyes, get a feeling for the throw, and then try and copy that with the length of your golf swing. So here for this first box, it's quite a short target, so I'm going to do a nice small swing, and then I'm going to gradually get the swing bigger for the further I need the ball to go. So let's have a go together then. So number one, so I'm going to try and chip the ball into this first box. It hasn't got to stay in the box, it just has to land in the box. So here I'm going to do a practice swing, thinking about my numbers, 1 to 5, and then I'm going to do my practice swings, visualising a target in the middle of this box. Okay? Good. Brilliant. So I landed the ball perfectly in that first box, which is great. Now it doesn't matter, the ball didn't stay in the box, it rolled on. So like we said last time, the ball will always land and roll. So it doesn't matter if the ball rolls out the box you're trying to land it in, it just has to take its first bounce in the box. Okay, so now my first swing was about this distance. So this time now I'm going to try and imagine myself going a little bit further, okay? So I'm going to now go for box number 2. So in between the yellow and the blue cones. So I'm going to remember my numbers, visualise that point, make a slightly bigger version of that. Last swing. Hit the ball. Yes, just about. Got a bit lucky there. Hit the club, but it landed in my box. So perfect. So this time now, I'm going to try and go a little bit further. So now again, a slightly bigger swing. Yes, brilliant. So I'm 3 out of 3 so far, so now I'm going to go for the last one between the white cones and the green cones. So a little bit further. A little bit short. So that one there, I didn't hit it hard enough. So as I hit that, I slowed down, didn't hit it in the right way. So I need to make a slightly bigger swing. So as this is the practice go, not a problem. I'm going to go for that one again. So I'm going to try and hit the ball into that end target. Yes, got it in. Perfect. So now, in my practice turn there, I've now landed it in all the boxes. So like I was doing at the beginning, now set yourself a challenge. Right, land it in 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. If you manage to get to the end, doesn't mean you completed it. Try and work back down the boxes and then back up and see. You know, some people used to get up to like 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe up to 10. Set yourself a target, see what you can get to. Okay, so I'm going to do it a little bit more with you here. So we're going to go back to box number 1 this time. Didn't hit it very well, but it's in. Not a great example, that one. Right, number 2. Oh, a bit too far. So now, have to start again. So, back to 1. Yes, right, 1. Oh, a bit too far again. Struggling now. So let's start again. So 1. Good. Now for number 2. Yes. Right, number 3. Yes, got number 3. Right, now number 4. Oh, a bit too far. Okay, so now I would go back to number 1 and I would start again. Now here it's important, like I was doing there, listen, you are going to make mistakes. You're not always going to get the ball into that target. Yeah, some of you might find the first go a little bit easier, like I did. Then you put a little bit of pressure on yourself for doing it. It's now the challenge, and all of a sudden, perhaps we get a little bit nervous. You've got a shot to beat your best score. But that's what we're trying to do in practice, is put yourselves under a little bit of pressure to then you know, get used to it when you're on the golf course. Okay, so really good tip, really good exercise for that. What you could also do if you've got mums, dads, brothers or sisters watching you is, yes, you've just put them in a row. Yes, you're trying to now put it in. If you miss, you start again. What you could do is shout out a random number they could shout out a random number for you to try and chip the ball in. So here I'm going to aim for a random number 3. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. So between the blue and the white ones. Oh, a little bit too far. Okay, so no points. And then they might shout out another one. Or if brothers or sisters want to play, or mums and dads want to play, let them have a go. You call the number out for them. Have a little challenge against them. Okay, so really good exercise that you can do there. Really good for testing your landing areas, your landing points. And more importantly, it's all about this feel. You know, golf is very much about developing some feel, trying to land the ball in those boxes. So getting used to contacting the ball correctly with a small swing, and then gradually making it bigger and seeing the ball go further. Okay, so we're going to move over just to the other side of my garden. I've got something else lined up for you. So give me a minute while I just move you across. So here, just set it up so you can see it. Okay, perfect. So over my shoulder now, you should be able to see a ladder. Okay. Now, if you've got a ladder, fantastic, you can have a go at this. Now we're going to talk about flight control. So we're going to talk about how we hit the ball low and how we gradually hit the ball a little bit higher. So here, on your golf club, I'm sure we would have spoken about this briefly in some lessons before, but we can give it a real good go in our garden. So here, this is obviously our golf club, and we have 2 parts of our golf club. We have the leading edge, which is this part here, and we have the bounce angle, which is this part here. Okay, now, when we're chipping generally, we push our hands a little bit forward, like we've said before, and we would then use the leading edge. Now, when I use the leading edge, this will make the ball go quite low. Okay, so on my ladder, the bottom couple of runs, you're going to use Lenny, the leading edge, and hit the ball low through those runs. Then, as you want the ball to increase in height, we then use Benny the bounce. So we use this part under the golf club. So when you come up, instead of pushing your hand so far forward towards your pocket, you're going to keep them a little bit more towards your belly button, and this will help the golf club to slide underneath the ball a little bit more and create a little bit more lift on that golf ball. Okay, so let me show you. So if I was standing this way, so again, just remembering my numbers. So number 1, hands down the grip. Number 2, make a triangle. Now this is where the difference happens. So if I'm going to use the leading edge, I'm going to lean onto my left side slightly, top of the club towards my pocket, and this will bring into play Lenny, the leading edge. Okay. From here, it's still the same number 4 and still the same number 5. Now, if I was going to use Benny the bounce and I wanted the ball to go a little bit higher, so really important in golf, if you're going over a hill, over the edge of a bunker, some long grass, we would use Benny the bounce. So here, we would go. Number 1 would see your hands go down the grip. Number 2, still make a nice triangle between the ball and your 2 feet. Number 3, you wouldn't have this lean. You would keep the golf club in the middle of your stomach towards your belly button, and we would then see the golf club slide underneath and into that nice finish. So again, keeping these arms straight and turning into the finish. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to put the ball on my towel, and I'm going to try and chip the golf ball through run 1, then through 2, 3, and gradually work my way up the ladder. Now, as I said earlier, for the smaller ones, for the lower ones, we would see Lenny the leading edge. For the higher ones, we would use Benny the bounce. Okay, so let's give it a go. Oh, that was close. Unlucky. Let's try again. So perhaps a little bit higher. Oh, not quite. Not quite. So I'm going to use my foam golf balls too. So I've got that one through, fortunately. So now I'm going to go for run number 2. So this time I was pushing my hands forward, so this time I'm going to go a little bit less. Okay, so I want the ball to go a little bit higher. Oh, not doing this one very well. Yes. Okay, so now I'm going for run number 3. So this time, you'll see top of the golf club more towards my belly button, so the club can slide underneath and the ball can lift a little bit higher. Bit low again. Bit low. So you can see when I'm doing this, they're not far out, but they're a little bit too low. So I need to try and feel like I'm hitting the ball a little bit higher. Lucky. Okay, so now just for a bit of fun, I'm going to try and get one a little bit higher. So from here, I'm going to open the face, get the golf club towards my belly button, and slide the club underneath. Yes, a little bit higher. Okay. Right, guys, so if you can for me today, give the chipping a go. Use the ladders. The ladders are a really, really important one. Just going to introduce you a little bit to Benny the bounce and Lenny the leading edge at the end. We'll talk a bit more about those next week and how we use those, and we'll talk a bit more about the flighted game, but try and get used to those landing areas for me to start with. And as I say, we'll use a bit more of those leading Lenny the leading edge and Benny the bounce a little bit more at the end, in our next session. So give it a go, send us those videos in, we'd love to see them again. Thanks a lot.